Now I'm going to start with the problems with the assumptions. In beginning, now we take a few assumptions in OLS case, and these OLS blue properties only proved when assumptions will met. There are problems with the assumptions. Now we have to deal with these assumptions in detail or these problems. So it might be that you face one of these problems while you run the regression. So you have to take care about these problems. So problem, I'm going to start with the multicollinearity. So today, first we will discuss what multicollinearity is all about. What are the associated problems, causes, consequences, how we can detect this problem, and then is there any remedial solutions for this particular problem? So that all we are going to discuss today. Okay, let's start it with first what multicollinearity is all about. Generally, when you have these problems, this particular problem is when you have a more than one independent variable. Means if you only have one independent variable, so then you are not need to worry about this particular problem. Is only when you have a more than one independent variable. So let's first try to understand what this problem is all about. Okay, with the help of Venn diagram, let's just try to understand this problem. Generally, when we run a regression and you have a two, let's suppose you have a two independent variable. The purpose is that you want to find impact of these two independent variables on a dependent variable. But the problem arises when these two independent variables are correlated. So it's not possible to find their true impact on the true individual impact on the dependent variable. Just take this example. I took this picture of this contestant from a Big Boss this particular season 14. Let's suppose those of you might be watching this, they might get this idea. You might know that the decision of these two contestants, Rubina and Binav, is mixed, right? Means they are taking decisions. First, they discuss with each other and they have a common consent in all their decisions. Let's suppose this particular contestant, Jasmine, is your dependent variable, and these two are your independent variable. Now, let's suppose you want to find how much the decision of Abhinav towards the Jasmine. Is it possible that you can find this individual decision of Abhinav regarding any of the task or any of the particular nomination towards the Jasmine? It's not possible because these two contestants, they're almost in all their decisions, first they have a consent and then they will replicate their decisions. So their individual decisions is not possible to find. So that's the one simple way I can put this problem. That let's suppose you have some particular variable y and you have a two independent variables x2 and x3. The purpose is to find the impact of x2 and y while keeping the x3 constant and impact of x3 on y while keeping the x2 constant. But if x2 and x3 are intercorrelated, means they are correlated, then this problem will arise in form of Venn diagram. Just try to understand. In all these diagrams, you can see this common area, right? So we don't know that this particular impact is due to x2 or x3. So this common area will create a problem. Means the whole purpose of putting independent variables in the regression is that we want to find their individual impact on the dependent variable. And while they have a joint, means some correlation among these variables, then these shaded areas, means you can't say that this particular impact on y is because of x3 or x2. So this is something common due to X2 and X3. So that's the one problem, that we are not able to say how much is the impact of X2 on the Y and how much of the X3 on the Y, because they are interrelated or they are highly correlated. So that's the one simplest way to put this problem. So there are many serious consequences of this particular problem. So first we will discuss this case, that what multicollinearity means. First we have to say that, wait, don't rush. Detection is the last part. It's not first part. First you try to understand the problem, then we will detect that, how we can detect that problem. First just try to understand this nature of the problem, that what exactly it is. Now here, let's suppose you have these four cases. The correlation between X2 and X3 is quite low. Then it's increasing, moderate, then high correlation, then very high correlation. So you can see this common shaded area. This particular problem is increasing with the increase in the correlation between these two problems. So first, this particular problem is of a degree type, that it's not possible that always we have a zero correlation between X2 and X3. So definitely there might be a correlation, but the thing is that if it's low, then it's better. But after some particular degree of the correlation between X2 and X3, this problem will arise. So it's not that always we can ensure that that correlation is zero between two independent variables. No, that's not. It's only when this particular problem arises when there is a high correlation. So with the detection methods, I'll try to give you this. What is high correlation? Is when we have to say that this will create a problem of multicollinearity. So first, okay. Now the two possibilities is that the main possibilities. One is the high correlation between X2 and X3, and the most dangerous problem is when you have a perfect correlation, that X1 and X2 perfectly correlated. That's, although that's not possible to find. It's not. That's, I think, really it's that when the correlation will be one. So, but if that's the case, that's the major problem. And yesterday I told you that if you not follow this dummy rule m-1 in the intercept model, then you will find this perfect multicollinearity. So that's the trap there, dummy variable trap. Okay, so first now I'm going to take this problem in two different cases. First case, when there is a high correlation between X2 and X3. And second case, when there is a perfect correlation, means the correlation between X2 and X3 is 1. So these two cases, first just try to understand the nature of this problem, and then what are the problems associated with this problem. So first just take a case of presence of perfect multicollinearity. Now first, what is perfect collinearity in form of regression equations? So this is a case of perfect multicollinearity. Okay, this particular, okay, before that, just take this case. Why this correlation problem will arise? Means what are the causes that create this particular problem, that when they have this correlation among the variables? It might be because of your data collection method. Might be you have only selected data on a limited range of individuals, where individuals' decisions are correlated. So it might be because you are not followed any proper sampling technique, and it might be your small sample size that might create a problem. Before starting these details, discussing in detail, let me tell you this one thing. Maximum time at many places, what I found is that researchers generally the formal way is that in PhD courses, we have a coursework in the beginning. And after coursework, we try to think about the synopses, our research questions, hypothesis, methodology part. And in that, these sampling techniques will come. at many places, what I found is that a researcher might think that this particular econometric research training is not required, so they try to skip it, and the consequences is that after when they complete their data collection and when they try to analyze the data, then they will find these problems. So there is no remedial solution at that particular moment. Means the thing is, you have to do it in the first place. You have to understand all these limitations of methods. Then only when you try to collect your data, and because this model will run only after the collection of data. So if you know all these problems in the beginning, then when you start collecting your data, you have these things in mind that these might be the situation that create a problem in your analysis. So you can take care about those problems in your data collection methods. But from my experience, what I found in except for one or two universities, my experience is from the 4 or 5 universities as a student, teachers, or part-time associate type of work, is that except for few universities in India that count like this ISEC, JNU, IGITR, Madras School of Economics, this Gokhale Institute, Calcutta University, in the Central University of Hyderabad. In all other places, the thing is researchers doing this thing, just trying to analyze these things after the data collection when they already built their regression model and their research question and variables are already that's already done. And when they face these problems, now the solution is not easy. It's not possible that you can collect data again. So that's why I'm again and again telling that this is something important, not because I am teaching or someone else is teaching this course. It's important because your PhD is at stake and you are compromising or you are unnecessary creating a problematic situation for your data analysis. Means it's not anyone else is creating that problem for you. You themselves creating a problem for you by ignoring these importance of these things. Let's suppose you have any specific research question and later on in your third and fourth year, you find this problem multicollinearity on data. And what will be the solution? You might change your research question, right? That maximum researchers are doing. But that's not the way. Means you did all the efforts in literature and all you convinced yourself, your guide and university that this is my research question. And later on you are changing your research question just because you find some problem in your methodology. That's not the solution, right? So why not at the first place you have to practice this? Yes, that's what I want, that this thing is in the parts of a research course and that we always do in the beginning of the PhD. So keep it in the beginning, then only it will be helpful you. If you do in the end, then it's just you have a knowledge about these problems, but you don't have the solutions. If you know the problem is there, but you don't know what's the solution. So that's difference only, you can change that situation if you do it in the beginning. So that's the first point, data collection method. If you done a data collection on a small range of a sample, then uh, that might be a probability that you have. The reason is that, let me give you this example. For solutions, always the reason of cause is important. Means if you don't know why that particular problem arises in a particular data or method, then it's not possible you can find solution. Okay, just take this small example. Let's suppose your research question is that you are trying to analyze, okay, just take a example of any macroeconomic variable. Okay, let's take a consumption behavior depend upon function of income. And let's take any other variable. Generally, you put this permanent income or permanent consumption hypothesis and rate of interest and all those variables. Let's take some other social behaviors, like for example, in which particular society you are living, means your standard of living, not only the actual income, but your other social and psychological factors that also cause this behavior change. and you did this particular, let's suppose I'm taking example of, okay, let's suppose we done this particular study in Chandigarh, and not in a all the places of Chandigarh, just in one particular sector of Chandigarh and in one particular geographical location of Chandigarh, where already all the individuals are belong to a higher standard of living. So already we are selecting one particular area, okay, right? That might not be representative for India. And out of that, we are taking only one specific area where all the individuals have a same type of taste and preferences. So when you have these type of means restriction in your samples, that will create a problem that your individual variables might be correlated. Your independent variables might be correlated with each other because from the individuals you are collecting that data, their thinking or their way of living is more or less same because you restricted the sample size. So that might create a problem. So that might be a case that data collection method, because of your sampling method, then constraint on the model or in the population being sampled. This is something that nature of variables means your nature of variable is such a that there is a possibility that there is chance of high correlation between the independent variables. For example, these I took from the Gujarati. Regression of electricity consumption on income and house size. So this is something restriction, right? The bigger the house size, the bigger the income, right? Higher the income, higher the house, bigger the house size. So it means the independent variable correlation will be high. Like in this example, electricity consumption is the dependent variable and independent variables are income and house size. So house size is also depend upon the income and wealth of the family. So as the income will increase, house size will increase, right? So there are chance of a high collinearity between income and house size. So that will create a problem. Then model specification. Let's take this example. Let's suppose we are taking a quadratic form of the equation. Because you might thought that your relation is quadratic, that it's not a straight line linear trend, and accordingly you selected a equation, this particular polynomial form. So definitely as x will increase, x square will increase, right? So it might be a problem, cause of problem. It might be because of your model specification. Is the way you have selected a model that might create this problem. Then overdetermined model is generally when you have a more number of independent variables. So that might be a chance that few of the variables are interrelated with each other. These are the probable causes. Means it's not that only these are the causes. The simply thing is that just try to understand all the possible causes which can create high correlation between your independent variable. That these are the just 4 examples, but there might be any other cause that create this particular problem. So then you have to think about that problem, that how you can get rid of that particular problem. So these are the possible chances where you will face this, create a problem for you as a multicollinearity. This is only when you have a high correlation. It's not possible that among independent variables correlation will be zero. It's always going to be a correlation, but thing is that it not needs to be high. Now what is the number for high? Is it 70%, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9? That will come when we will do detection method because of few methods from the literature. Now there is some consensus about these numbers, so that I'll discuss and I'll come to. this particular case of detection. I hope you got this point, that what are the probable cause of high correlation among independent variables. These are just four examples, but any of other, it might be any other cause that create high correlation between the independent variables. That's the cause for multicollinearity, and that you have to deal, that how you can get rid of that. Now come back to its nature, that two cases. One, I am going to take this perfect correlation case, and then this high correlation case, this one. So one by one, first try to understand what it means in technical terms, and then what are its consequences and what are the problems. Okay, we know that, okay, there is a high correlation, but what are the associated problems with that? So first take a case of perfect collinearity, multicollinearity. So if you remember last time, before dummy variable, in the multiple regression model with two independent variables, we did all these derivations, right? This was lecture 8 in a part 3. So in the end, we reached to these derivations. In case of two independent variables, we did all these derivation, and intentionally I did because these will help you to understand this multicollinearity problem. So now, first try to understand perfect collinearity case. That is when you have a perfect correlation. Now, what is perfect correlation? Perfect correlation is that when your independent variables have a correlation 1, perfect correlation. Let's suppose this is the nature, this is that your particular x3 variable is perfectly correlated with x2, and this lambda is the proportion, non-zero constant. It might be 2 for any particular number. So this equality equation will tell that they are perfectly correlated. Means the direction between x3 and x2 will be more or less same. This is like this particular. Let's take this graphical look. Like income and consumption. Means as income goes, as consumption is, if the all the changes are same, there is not a slight small change variation that is differ from the other variable, means both will go in the same direction. In technical terms, that this equality equation, that x3 is equal to x2 with some particular constant number. So this is a case of perfect correlation. So if that will be the case, then the first major problem, okay, before that, all of you got this point, that what is perfect correlation? In technical terms, R square is 1, but what that means in equational form is that one of your independent variables is perfectly correlated with other variable, like this particular form. This lambda might be any number. It might be 5, 6, 7, 8, but some constant number is associated, and this is the equality equation. So this is a perfect collinearity case. Is it clear, this particular thing? Then I'll come to this first major problem with this particular situation. Anyone any doubt in this thing, that what it means, why we have written in this particular form? If you can see in the equational form, this is the situation. This one, yeah, means these variables are perfectly equal to 0 without any unknown factor. Means there is this equality situation, perfect correlation. This particular, lambda might be any number. So if this is the situation, what problem it will create? This is our equation that we have derived, right? This beta 1 and beta 2. So let's suppose our x3 is equivalent to lambda x2. So if you if we can put this particular lambda x2 in place of x3, then try to solve it. You will get this indeterminate expression. Means what it means that if you have a perfect correlation case, it's not possible that we can estimate this beta 2 or beta 3. That's the first problem we have. That with the regression equation, what generally we do, we try to estimate all these values, right? Coefficients, standard errors, then t-stat, r-square, f-ratio for overall significance. The first thing we started with the derivation of coefficients, right? But here the problem is, if we have a perfect collinearity, this coefficient derivation is not possible. It's indeterminate expression, because this is the formula that we did last time in the lecture 8. Any one of you want to know which lecture I'm talking about? So just give you this glimpse of the lecture 8. So that you can take this reference for this derivation if you are not done with this particular lecture 8 of the part 3. Now, if you can put this particular value here, in place of x3, we are going to put lambda x2. So everywhere here we have to put a lambda x2 wherever we have a x3. Here it's summation yi x3i, so it will be now in a deviation form. It's x2i, then x2i square with lambda square, and minus here in place of x3 again lambda x2i. So this x2i gets square and lambda is here. And then in division, in place of x3i, lambda square summation x2i square. And here again in place of x3i, this is lambda x2i square. So it's in the square form. So if you can solve it, you will get this indeterminate expression 0y0. So what it means that the first consequence is that these coefficients are indeterminate, regression coefficients. If multicollinearity is a perfect, the regression coefficients of variables are indeterminate. So that's the first associated consequence or problem of this perfect multicollinearity. Anyone, any doubt here? You can just try to solve this equation. You will get this expression, that is 0 by 0. Otherwise, just let me know in and out. Just put it in Skype or anywhere you want to share it with me. I can solve it for you. It's just in place of x3, you have to put this lambda x2, and you will get this indeterminate expression. So that's the first problem with the multicollinearity. If it's a perfect, but although except for this dummy variable trap, it's very rare that you will find this perfect multicollinearity problem. Now, what will be the second problem with this? For hypothesis testing, we need these t statistics, right? Or in the confidence interval, again, we need a standard error. And in t statistics, the denominator thing is standard error that we did in the hypothesis testing for the individual significance. So what about the standard error when we have a perfect multicollinearity? So now you can see this particular thing with the standard error. We did this variance derivation, right? With these derivations for variance, and from variance we have a standard error. So now just think that what if this correlation among these independent variables is perfect, that is 1. So this term will be 1 minus 1, that's now 0. So it will increase standard errors, right? This means this correlation is perfect, then this particular R square will be 1. And if it's 1, then this 1 minus 1, this is 0. So this denominator term will be reduced. It means overall standard variance will increase, and standard error is just under root of the variance. So that automatically that will increase. So that's the second problem with this perfect multicollinearity, is that the regression coefficients of the experiment indeterminate and their standard errors are infinite. So if something we divide by 0, that's standard error infinite. Is it clear? This second problem with the perfect multicollinearity, that this variance or standard error will be indefinite. That's the first case when we have a perfect multicollinearity. Or let's see, is there any other? Okay, yeah, this term is given. Yeah, this thing was describing it. Might be some mistake is there. Yeah, this minus is not here. It's a mistake here. It's not a minus, actually this is a multiplication. That you have to correct it. So this correlation is 1, so this is 0 and denominator term is 0 and variance is divided by 0, that's indefinite. So that's the first. Second problem with the, and if your standard error is indefinite and your coefficient is indeterminate, so whole purpose of regression is for the main purpose is we want these coefficients and then we want to check their individual significance and overall significance of the model. So that's not possible if we have a problem of perfect multicollinearity. Is it clear? Means what is the problem if we have a perfect multicollinearity? These derivations we did in a last class, so just go by that. We'll get these expressions, means how these values will come, and here we are just using those derivations to the problem with the multicollinearity. Is it clear? The case of perfect multicollinearity and with the perfect multicollinearity. Then the second case is imperfect multicollinearity. Now, before that thing is, these things means the understanding of these things is depend upon how much homework you have done in the previous class. Means in this part 3 series and part 1 as well, because I told you this base we started from the part 1, this hypothesis testing we did in the part 1, that how we calculate this t statistics, how we compare. So now here we are dealing with that what will the problem in this particular thing that arise because of this, the violation of these assumptions, that you can only understand if you have understanding of these statistics. Similarly, we did a derivation for these coefficients. So if you know the derivation part, that how we derive these values, then only you can understand the associated problem with those values. That's why I'm telling you that this derivation part, although it's easy to run a regression in a stata just in a running the command, but to understand this, you have to understand these derivations and process of these derivation. So if any by any chance still you have not done those derivations, so I can understand you will not get this problems in detail, that what I am talking about and how these equations are from where these equations are coming. What are the problems in these derivations, that you can only understand if you are done with the derivation part. So that's why in the beginning I did all these derivations and we took a long time for those derivations. First with the bivariate, then with the matrix, then again for the two independent variables. So although we did it 3 times, so I don't know how much you have done in the practice for those derivations, but then only you can understand it. So the next case is imperfect multicollinearity, means there is a correlation, but it's not perfect. So in equational form, it means is that okay, x3 is related with x2, but it's not that only x2 is defining x3. Some other factors as well, they are defining the x3. So now this is the means more towards the reality, that generally we have these situations that okay, there might be a correlation that, but generally the thing which we required in form of Venn diagram, okay, yeah, this one, the requirement is one that x2 and x3 not need to be correlated. But again, I'm telling the problem arises when there is a high correlation. So this is the situation. Now this is the common part between x2 x3, but there is still other part in the x3 which is not explained by s2. Or with the Venn diagram, let me explain you once again this situation. Let's suppose the change in x3, these are the changes in x3. Now the first situation was where we said that x3 is equal to any some constant number x2, but it means that x3 is completely defined by x2. So all these changes are completely defined by x2, and the r square is 1, that 100% changes in the x3 are explained by x2. Lambda is any constant number. But the other situation, now we have imperfect multicollinearity, that is again the changes in x3 are explained by x2, but not completely. Means there might be some other factors, like in this case x3 is some constant x2 plus some other terms as well. Means there are changes in x3 which are not because of the x2, but because of some other factors. Now this is towards some real situations, but this is a problem if this correlation is high. Means the maximum area of x3 is now explained by x2. If let's suppose there might be another situation here that only a small proportion of x3 is explained by x2. That's not a cause of problem here. Means that's not a when you need to be worried about. It's not possible. It's not possible that the correlation will be zero. That x3 totally independent from x2. That's a very rare case you will find. Most probably you will find these type of situations, but only you have to worry about when this correlation is high. I'll come to this number high, that is either 8.8 or 0.7 or 0.95 or 9. But first, just try to understand this is the second case when change in x3 is not totally explained by the x2 only, it might be due to some other factors as well. But the correlation between x3 and x2 is quite high. So that's the case of imperfect multicollinearity. So changes in x3 are not only because of x2, but because of some other variables as well. Now, if we can put this particular equation in this derivation, now in place of x3, in this particular derivation, now in place of x3, this particular, in place of x3, now we have to put lambda x2i plus some unknown factors. So in this case, we can solve this particular equation. Now values are determined. When it's not that this thing is going to be a zero, it means now it's possible to determine the coefficient values, these estimates. The only problem is now this estimate is possible. Now then what will be the problem? The associated problem is that in this particular situation, this variance or standard error will increase. Now how it will increase? Just see these few examples. I'm going to take these two cases. Okay, first we done that if this value is 1 and this is indefinite, right? Sigma square by 0, that is indefinite, so it's not possible. Now then this is the next situation when we have a high correlation. Now let's see what will be the problem now. I'm going to take two hypothetical situations. First, when this coefficient of determination among these two variables is okay. Let's take two different. One is 0.4, 40% variation in 2 or 3 is explained by another variable, and in the next case take 0.9, that 90% when there is a high correlation. So what will be the problem now? Is sigma square summation xi square. Now first case it is 1 minus 0.4, and this particular value will be sigma square by summation xi square by 0.6, right? And in the second, this is the first case. In the second case, this is sigma square summation xi square 1 minus 0.9. So it will be sigma square by summation xi square 0.10. Now, if your denominator will decrease and that will be in a fraction, so now you can understand that this particular value, this overall value will going to be increased because of reduction in this particular part of this various formula of these estimates. So this particular value will be much higher as compared to this particular value. So that's the cause of problem, that with increase in the correlation between two independent variables, variance of estimates will increase, and from variance we will calculate standard error of these estimates that we will use as these beta estimates that we will use in a hypothesis testing in t-stat in a denominator, right? Standard error of beta hat. So again, this denominator will increase. So this t-stat is again, this overall value will going to be increased. These are the associated problems. First, just try to understand this particular thing, that standard error will increase if correlation between independent. Now, what is the problem with the increase in standard error? The problem is that it will increase t statistics value, because this denominator will increase. Let me put it in a fair way. I know my writing is not good. I'm not used to these pen tablets. Or it might be that I mostly write in a rough form. Is it clear? This situation is clear. That because of the increase in the variance, standard error of these beta estimates will increase. And because of increase in the standard error estimates, these t statistics, where in denominator we use these standard errors or beta estimates. Now t value will increase, t statistics value will increase because this denominator will increase. When denominator will increase, overall value will going to be overall value going to be small. It's not increase, it will decrease. Yeah, Pallavi. Thank you. Yeah, this will decrease. Now we have to think about it. Is it a problem that decrease in the t statistics value? Is it a problem or not? First, that we have to see. Now, where we use this t statistics value, we generally use this t statistics value to compare it with the critical range. hypothesis testings. Let's suppose it's a two-tailed test. So with the generally the rules are, if this t statistics value, this particular t value is outside the critical range, then what we do, we reject the null hypothesis. We reject the null hypothesis. And generally the null hypothesis in these cases we have like beta 1 is equal to 0, that it's not beta hat, but it's beta, because null hypothesis is about the population parameter. And if we reject it, that means it's not equal to 0. So it means it is statistically significant, means that particular variable significantly explain changes in a dependent variable. But if this t value get reduced, if this will be decreased, then chances is that this t value will lie within this critical range. And if it will lie in this critical range, then we are going to accept null hypothesis. So if we accept the null hypothesis, that means beta coefficient is, or any that particular individual variable, that is statistically insignificant. So our decision is going to change. It might be earlier statistically significant, but because of the increase in the standard error, that is because of the increase in the variance, this t statistics value going to be reduced, and that might put this t statistics within a critical range, and based upon that we will accept a null hypothesis that might we have to reject, but now we are accepting. So whole decision will change. The total decision of this regression analysis will change because of this particular problem. So that's the major cause and need of worry here, that whole decision of this particular acceptance and rejection will change because of increase in the variance. So that's the now that's the problem here with the multicollinearity, that our decisions is going to change. Now this particular problem, this will be type 2 error. Type 2 error is that when you accept the false hypothesis, right? Yes. Type 1 error is that you have to reject true, null hypothesis is true, but we have to reject, and the vice versa is type 2. And yes, if we have this situation that we are accepting the false hypothesis, so that's a type 2 error, and that's more dangerous as compared to type 1 error. So this is the problem. So now this problem is because of a high correlation between independent variables. So our decision will get changed. So this is the problem with the multicollinearity. If it's a first case when we have a perfect multicollinearity, then this is indeterminate, then there is no question to do any hypothesis testing, or because these beta coefficients are indeterminate, so there is no any other way that we can do any analysis. In that situation, these are indeterminate, so there is no analysis, I would say. But if it's a high correlation, then the problem is with the hypothesis testing and overall decision. So that's again a cause, again a problem, right? This is not a small problem. But if it's a high correlation, it's not that always we have multicollinearity. It's only when we have a high correlation. So first, is it clear? These consequences are clear. Let me put it in a bookish form. Yeah. Although if it's a high correlation case, if it's the first case, then I told you it's indeterminate and beta coefficients are indeterminate and standard error is indefinite. But if it's a second case of imperfect multicollinearity, but it means high correlation among the independent variables, the estimates are still blue, but they have a large variances. Because of the consequence one, because of the large variances, the confidence intervals tends to be much wider, leading to the acceptance of zero null hypothesis. Like with the t-statistics approach, we are going to accept the null hypothesis. And because of the consequence of one, the t ratio of one or more coefficients tends to be statistically insignificant because we are accepting null hypothesis. And although the t ratio of one or more coefficient is statistically insignificant, the overall goodness of it can be very high. Means that a situation that overall model is significant, means R square is high for overall model, but individually variables are not significant. So these contradictory results you will find. I'll come to this point while we do this detection method. But major cause is this, that T ratio and the zero null hypothesis that we have to accept because of this consequence. And that is because of increase in variance and standard error. But before now going to a detection, okay. Any doubt in this? For this fourth one, I'll do it in detail, the detection method. Any other doubt in this? These are the consequences of imperfect multicollinearity and perfect multicollinearity. I told you, beta coefficients are indeterminate and standard errors are indefinite. Confidence interval. If you use confidence interval approach, actually, if you can go by this confidence interval approach, these confidence intervals, they will increase. Yeah, this one. Because your confidence intervals are your estimated beta coefficient plus minus t standard error of that coefficient, means that's range of that your confidence interval that come from a estimated beta plus minus t standard multiplied by standard error. So if your standard error will increase, so definitely your confidence interval will increase, and the chances that we are going to accept null hypothesis. So either you can go by this t-statistic approach or confidence, that choice is yours. It's the same thing actually. In t-statistics, with the decrease in denominator, t-statistics value will reduce, then we are going to be on a conclusion of null hypothesis, acceptance of null hypothesis. And if it's a confidence interval, again, we are going to accept a null hypothesis because of the wider confidence intervals. Okay. So this is the consequence of the problem of multicollinearity. So, okay, before jumping to a detection, there are a few things you have to note down here. That I was reading this G.S. Madala, Introductory Econometrics, and there I found this chapter more interesting, actually. But to understand that, first you have to go through this either Kotsianis Introductory Woolridge. This chapter is not there. Either you can go by a Kotsianis or Gujarati or any other textbook. But there are, but if you read this chapter from a G.S. Madala, G.S. Madala highlighted few points in general textbooks where they have given these consequences. G.S. Madala is trying to give you conclusions related to these consequences that you have to take care before jumping to these conclusions. And one of those I found is more important and relevant that I want to share. Like all these conclusion of consequences we have derived from this notion, right? This particular formula, right? And because of this high correlation, all these problems are created. So if you go by this G.S. Madala, They divided this formula in 3 parts, and they give these uh, alternative situations that you have to take care. Let me briefly give you this example. Means that's the thing. Means it's not that we can get everything from one single textbook. We have to read. Same thing with the literature. The more you read, the more clarity you will get. So in GS Mandala, they divided this formula in 3 parts, like this denominator sigma square. This value comes from this particular value, right? As tools. And this expected value we have proved that is equal to this value. And what is this value? This is summation u hat square by, if it's two independent variable, then n minus 3. So this is the value from where you will get this, and from this value we used as a sigma square, and that value we use in a numerator. So first thing you have to keep in mind is that this value is coming from a summation u hat square. So this is the first part, numerator, right? Second part in the denominator, that is summation xi square. So this is a variation in x variable around the mean, right? This one is x variation of, now if we have a two independent variables, so it is a variation of a first independent variable, and then we have this third term 1 minus this square of the correlation between two independent variables. If it's a notation, if you are taking from a quotient, then it's a 1 and 2. Means here the model is y is equal to okay, we did this from the quotient is to take the same notation, beta 0 plus beta 1 hat x1 plus beta 2 hat x2 plus residual term, and residual they generally write in a e, and if it's a Gujarati, they use beta 1 hat beta 2 hat x2 plus, because they use y as 1, so x2 plus 3 x3 plus residual hat. So you can use any of these, but try to these 3 values. Okay, so this is the first, if it's a first variance in this beta 1 hat, this is x1 variable, means its deviation around the mean. This is x minus x mean of first variable, right? So these are the 3 values here, first, second, and 3. So overall variance means, according to Mandala, this overall variance depends not only on this correlation factor, there are other 2 associated factors as well. So generally in simple text truth, we only find all the conclusions with the change in this correlation and keeping all these changes as a constant part. So it's not necessary, right? So you have to take care about these 2 changing factors as well. Then only we can comment upon overall change, because this overall variance depend upon these 3 values. This one is from the residual, this one is from the variation around the mean, and this is between the correlation between these 2 independent variables. So they give this situation. First situation, let's see. That this R square is high, that we are talking, right? The problem of multicollinearity, high R square. And we are saying if it's high, the overall it's 1 minus, so overall value will be increased. That's the conclusion we found, and then standard error will increase, then the t statistics value get reduced, or wider confidence intervals that will lead us to this acceptance of null hypothesis, which means that that particular variable is statistically insignificant. But now just take this situation that this is high, but sigma square is low, this numerator part. This is this particular part. This is from a numerator part. And this value will be high. So what will be outcome? Now I'm giving you this situation that what will be the total outcome? This will increase, okay. But if it will get reduced and this value is going to be high, so it might be a situation that impact of increase in correlation will get negligible because of cancellation due to increase in the numerator of this particular, that means the increase in this summation you had square, and it might be reduction in this, that might be because of reduction in summation you had square, and it might be that more deviation around the mean in that particular variable, so this overall value get reduced, or there is no change, right? So the variance of beta 1 hat in this situation is not going to increase because of increase in the r square, because it will get neutralized because of reduction in the sigma square and increase in the sigma xi square. So if it will increase and this will be decreased. So this variance of beta 2 will not increase because of increase in the r square. Is this point is clear that this total outcome is not only depend upon this particular factor, but there are two other factors as well. So that might be the chance that with the change in these two factors in opposite direction can give us a negligible results in change in the variance because of high correlation between two independent variables. So that might be a situation. So it's not easy to judge that just with the variance implicating factor we can say this particular factor we can say that variance will increase. Is it clear? And there are a few other points that Madala is describing that I suggest if you have that particular textbook, go through it and read this chapter. You will get few more interesting facts about the multicolor narrative, which generally are not in the textbooks, standard textbooks of econometrics. And one of these is this particular factor, which I found quite useful because that might be a situation that summation you had gets reduced, means that means better the regression line. If it's all the actual observations are nearby regression line, definitely residual term will decrease. It reduce the variance, and it might be that there is a high deviation in X factor, so that might be the chance. So is it clear? This point that these consequences are okay, whatever these consequences based upon the variance, they are okay, but you have to take care about these factors. These variances, consequences, these are okay, but you have to take about this alternative situation as well. So you have to cross check it before jumping to this conclusion. You have to make sure whether this is only because of the change in the R square, or there might be a chance that other two factors are also changing. That can cancel out this impact. Okay, so this is the one important point that I want to highlight. Now, next is the detection. The Gagan that asking is that if we know that there is a multicolority, then how we can detect this thing? But before that, now, is it clear what is multicolority? These two situations are clear. What is perfect multicolority? What is the imperfect? And what are the consequences of these two problems? Is it clear? Then I'll come to a detection method, that how we can find multicolority in the regression model. Today, I'm most probably going to take cross-sectional cases because in this series I'm restricted to cross-sectional analysis. Any doubts so far? Okay, so I hope you won't have any doubt. Okay, we'll come to this table later on. First, now start with the detection. First method is, this is the last consequence actually. High R-square but few significant ratios. Okay, so take this example. Use a dataset file, open. Sorry. Example datasets. Consumption is there. No, consumption is not there. Is this file I shared with you? This consumption. If not, then just watch it. I'll send this particular file to you. I have a data of consumption and income. So let's suppose, just take this hypothetical case, not that theoretically I'm putting this model, I'm just taking hypothetical situation where there is a high correlation between two independent variables. Let's suppose my model is, this particular case, my model is, okay, first let me write the model. Model is, my dependent variable is population. I'm taking it equivalent to beta 1, that's the intercept term, plus this income, beta 2 income. This is actually beta 1, like hat, beta 2 hat, plus beta 3. This is not a command, I'm just explaining you a model. Beta 3 hat consumption plus residual term, that is I'm writing ui hat. Okay, this is the model, regression model. This I'm saying population depends upon income and consumption. It's just a hypothetical case. Don't try to make any theoretical conclusion. Just I'm taking this particular situation so that I can explain you this first particular detection. That is high R square but few significant, and this is the last consequence. In the consequence, this is the last. All the T ratios are one or more coefficients is statistically insignificant. The R square, the overall measurableness of it can be very high. This particular situation and first detection method, that will get this clarity with this particular example. So let's suppose this is my model. So I am going to run this model and let's see what were the results. Regress population, that might be a Marshall, that population theories, if you can remember, they say that if income will increase, and Marx also criticized this point that the classicals that this Marshall and those theories in Ricardo, so you can study that if income of the labor will increase, population will increase. One of the notion from that, but I'm not taking it any particular theoretical model, just to give you a situation. Now see this R square. High R square, right? 0.99 is quite high, right? Nearby perfect, but it's not a 1, so these are determinate because it's not a 1. If it's a 1, they are indeterminate. That you can try with the dummy variable trap. Now R square is high, but saying the few significant T ratios. Let's see the significance of T ratios. Yes, this one only consumption is significant, Y is insignificant. So if this is so high, it needs to be that this both needs to be significant, then only it's possible that 99% of the change in the Y variable is explained by independent variables x1 and x2. But here we can see that one of the variables is insignificant, only one is significant, and still it's quite high. So it might be an indication of multicollinearity. It might be, might not be. But to cross check it, let's see the correlation between these two independent variables. It might be a high correlation. Correlation between Y and C. Yeah, it's 0.99. So this is a high collinearity, right? It's imperfect, but high collinearity. So it might be that this is creating problem here, that this T ratio might be get reduced because of the increase in the standard error, and that cause us to lead to this conclusion that null, we have to accept null hypothesis and this income is insignificant. If we can run this individually, means let's regress population on Y. This is statistically significant, but while we are combining it with the consumption, because of the high collinearity between Y and income and consumption, this is insignificant. So it might be because of this consequence of increase in the variance that led us to that's the increase in standard error, and because of that decrease in the T ratio. Because of that, we are accepting the null hypothesis. Is it clear that this first detection, high R square but few significant T ratios? And if this is only a simple case, I have to get two independent variable. You can try it with 5 or 6 independent variables, and then you can try to cross check. Okay, this first method is clear. High R square, few significant T ratios. Gagan, is it clear? This was the imperfect but high collinearity. Okay, then second detection method. I'm taking these cases from Gujarati because maximum detection methods are given in this textbook. So that's this I'm also taking from here. Okay, second, high pairwise correlation among regressors. Regressors are your independent variables. Means if you can see these pairwise correlations, that might be quite high. For example, let's suppose this is our regression model. And there might be that situation that this fourth variable, if we see its correlation with other two variables, it might be high or nearby perfect. But if we see individual correlation with of this fourth variable with the third, that's only 0.5. Fourth variable with the second variable, that's only 0.5. And second with the third, means their individual correlations are only 0.5. But if we see the overall pairwise, then overall correlation of this fourth variable with the second and third, that's quite high. Means this coefficient determination is nearby 1. That's not possible. That's individually their correlation is only 0.5 and this R square is equal to 1. So that might indicate that that's because of this multicollinearity problem. So that might be a situation. Then more practical situation. Yeah, examination of partial correlations. Now, in place of these regression correlations, let's cross-check these partial correlations. In partial correlations, the situation is that the individual. Now here, the only difference in this method and the previous method is that here we are seeing the correlation between the regressors only. And in this situation, we have to see that overall coefficient of determination with all the independent variables that might be very high, but individual correlation of this dependent variable with independent, like y with the x1, y with the x3 or x2, y with the x3 or x4, is comparatively low, but if we see the overall uh, coefficient of determination, that's quite high. So if these two contradictory results are there, that can also indicate that it might be because of multicollinearity. Now let's take an example from this data. Now here, okay, yeah, with graph, the last situation that was income and consumption that you can see, they are highly correlated. And that's actually the situation, nature of this variables. Income and consumption, definitely they will increase. So that might be a high correlation situation. Okay, so now pairwise partial correlations. Okay, now you can use this data set consumption. Sorry, not consumption, census. Now what we have to see, partial correlation. First, overall dependent variable with all, and then dependent variable individually with all independent variables. So take here the model as first overall. Let's take divorce as an independent variable. Sorry, dependent variable. And independent is urban population, death, and marriage. Don't try to find theory that how death is related to divorce means. I'm just taking these hypothetical situations of variables to give you glimpse of how you can apply these methods. That's the only purpose here. To make actual case studies that take a time is I need data sets and literature reviews, then only I can give you the real case studies. But here just I have make few example sets. Okay. So first see the overall R square is 0.91, means these three independent variables, urban population, death and marriage, explain 91% variation in the dependent variable. That is this R square. Dependent variable with overall. This is although high, okay, 91%. Now let's cross check the partial correlations of this dependent variable. So for that command is partial correlation. First just put dependent variable, then with all independent, urban population, death and marriage. Now you can see here partial correlation, or if you need a square of partial, yes, square, then these are the square values, this one. Now you can see the partial correlation is 0.220334. It's low and high, and in overall R square is 91. So these are the two contradictory results, right? These individual, they are only just 22, 30 or 3%, but combined they're 99, 91%. So if we have these two opposite results, then we can say that it might be because of multicollinearity. So that is examination of partial correlations. Is it clear? Any one of you might be, I think Nimisha is from Punjab University, Gagan from Patiala, Prerna from DKV Jalandhar. In these regions, this econometric course in MA3, they have this in their syllabus, all this multicollinearity in a first semester in basic econometrics. So you can share these actually these lectures with those master students, because definitely they will get help, because in econometrics many students struggle to get notes for these things, and more than that to understand this practical applicability, because sometimes when first time we read these textbooks, it's understand what they're actually telling. So these examples will definitely help them to actually understand this process, that okay, what this detection method is and how we can do that. So I know there are 50, 60 students in master courses in every college and university in this region, Punjab and Chandigarh. So, and definitely you might have this contact with your juniors in masters. You just have to reach to them and try to understand that definitely they are struggling in the econometrics. So just share this with them, or or you can explain with your friends. That's more useful. Okay, so the fourth one, auxiliary regressions. This is, in all these methods, just try to understand that what we are trying to put it that independent variables are highly correlated. That's the simple thing. Just keep in mind that's we are going trying to prove, and that's what we are proving here. So auxiliary regression in this method, it is actually just run a regression of independent variables, and if that model is overall significant, it means they are correlated with each other, and that's why statistically significant correlation. That's why these variables are explaining changes within each other. So that might be a problematic situation that needs to be independent, not dependent on each other. So this is something like running a regression of this one, Avinav of Rubina or Rubina on Avinav. That are they independent or they dependent? If this regression model is significant, it means they are depending, they are explaining, or they are explaining the change in the decisions of each other. So that's auxiliary regression. Now, how you can do it in this data? Okay, I'll take a same example. Run this regression of independent variables. Take any of them as a dependent variable and others are independent, like death and marriage here. And see this, okay. This R square is quite high, right? 95%. What indicates that, and this overall model is significant. From this F ratio, you can see here that this p-value is less than the level of significance. This model is significant. What it means that this death and marriages are explaining 95% changes in the urban population, plus this model is significant, means they are explaining the changes within independent variables. That might be because of multicollinearity or high correlation between independent variables. Like we have here 95% R square. So this is again a problem. This is running an auxiliary regression. And the rule of thumb is here that which suggests that if this auxiliary R square is greater than the actual model, like this R square is 95%, and this overall actual model, the R square is 91%. So this 95 is greater than this 91%. So we can say that this might be because of multicollinearity. So this is a rule of thumb here that if auxiliary R square is greater than the actual overall R square, then it might be because of multicollinearity. So this is another simple method. Then okay, eigenvalue and condition index. This eigenvalue right now I don't want to go in detail, but in many textbooks in matrix appendix, you can get this what is eigenvalue and eigenvector. Or after the part 4, there might be a chance that I'll take one webinar on PCA method. And in that method, I'll explain this eigenvalue in all, because that in PCA method, everything is based upon the eigenvectors and eigenvalue. So then I'll explain it in detail. But here just, if you don't know the word eigenvalues, just note down this method. In SPSS, this is a function, inbuilt function, you can get eigenvalues. But in Stata, you have to run these commands. Then only you will get this eigenfactor, eigenvalue, and eigenvector. The rule here is that if we divide maximum eigenvalue by minimum eigenvalue, and if this value is between 100 and 1000, then we can say it's a moderate to strong multicollinearity. So first, just see how we can calculate this eigenvalue in Stata. Okay, so first, it's about independent variables. So just one by one, I'm running these commands to get an eigenvalue. Correlation between independent variables. And then these commands one by one. This is actually commands related to matrix form. This is like x minus a, then lambda of the matrix. That I'll explain while in a PCA method, because there I have to explain it in detail. So either you can wait for that, or you can just go by any appendix of the matrix. We'll get eigenvalues. It is symmetric form we are taking here. This is symmetric eigenvalues. Then lambda. And in the end, although this command is quite useful for PCA as well, because here if you can see, you will get PCA result, principal component results. So these are the eigenvalues that we need for this method. Now here, the maximum eigenvalue is 2.84 and minimum is 0.02. So if you divide this 2.84 by 0.2, we'll get 140 something. Let me do it with calculator. $2.84 divided by minimum value, that is 0.027. That is 10105. So as per the rule, if k is between 100 and 1000, there is a moderate to strong multicollinearity. So here we have a more than 100. So we can say there is a multicollinearity. Or just conditional index, that's under root of the k. That's between 10 and 30. Then also you can say this is a multicollinearity problem. This conditional index is actually also tell us the sensitivity, that if some small change will happen in the data, how that can affect the standard error. this conditional index is also important for that sensitivity test type of testing, to how much this standard error is uh, sensitive to change in any of the values in the data sets. This conditional index is also useful to get that notion, and that's quite high when we have a problem of multicollinearity. Okay, so these are the methods, and then there is one more, variance inflating factor. Yes, variance inflation factor. Now first, before it, this is when we have a variance inflating factor more than 10, then we can say this is problem of multicollinearity, and that is generally when we have this R square between two independent variables nearby 0.90. So before that, just try to understand what is this variance inflating factor. This is the, like I told you, we have to divide this particular formula in three different parts. So this particular part, 1 upon 1 minus this R square, this is we say as a variance inflating factor, that the increase in R square will inflate the variance. That's why we say it a variance inflating factor. So if it will be high, yes, more than 10, that will give you, and when it will be more than 10, just see this particular table. Yeah, more than 10 when this R square is more than 90. Then only this variance inflating factor is more than 10. And this change is exponential. Like this particular value will increase in this particular till 0.5 or 0.8. This is only nearby 2 times or 1.5 times. But once it reaches to a 90%, that it increased 10 times. And then you can see the variance inflating factor. The first, if R square is near, means if you have a till 50% correlation between 20 variables, only it is 0.33 times it will increase this particular variance. But once it reaches a 90%, then it's 5 times, and if it's 95, then 10 times, and then if it's 99, then it's 50 times. That's too quite high. So from here, you can now get a hint that what is high correlation problematic here. If it's nearby 90, or many time in many textbooks, even they consider this 0.80 as well, because it increased variance 2 times. But in this Gujarati, you will get this, that if it's nearby 90 as R square, it increased variance 10 times. So that's quite high increase, exponentially high increase. So that's problematic, because that can lead us to this conclusion of this acceptance of null hypothesis, because of the increase in standard error and increase in the confidence interval, wider confidence interval, or decrease in the t ratio, this t statistics. So that's why this is problematic. So this variance inflating factor can also give you this test of detection. And one more thing I was talking with you. Yeah, this sensitivity thing about the conditional index. You can see when there is a multicollinearity problem, one slight change can increase the values. Like this is the first case, the R square is 0.81 overall, and this between two independent variables, it's 0.55. This was the first case. In the second case, they did this interchange between these two observations. 0 and 12, they get interchanged. Now just see the results. R square is increased from 55 to 82, just with the change in one observation. And that's actually sensitivity of the change in observations. This conditional index can also helpful to get this idea. That's also one of the nature of multicollinearity. Then if we have a multicollinearity, then, and especially when we have small samples, this small change in the data set can change the results significantly. That's also, this conditional index will help us. So this is variance inflating. Okay, so how you can get variance inflating factor in this data? Just run your regression. Like we have this regression, divorce equal to population, urban population, death and marriage. And after that, just type VIF. It will give you variance inflating factors. Now you can see the variance inflating factor for these two is more than 10, right? 18 and 21. So it's problematic. So it's more than 10. The rule is if it's more than 10, so it might be because of multicollinearity. So this is another method of detecting detecting multicollinearity. Okay, before that, anyone any doubt so far till detection or in consequences or in causes or in the nature? Although all these examples now I have explained you with data, some practical examples, so you can get more detailed information that how you can work with these. But still, any one of you have any doubt? Means I suggest you please go through this Gujarati chapter and GS Mandala. You will get more detail about this. In next series, if I'll be able to successfully conduct, I'm going to add few more things in multi-coordinarity part from the GS Mandala. Means I found there are quite many important points. That's not only in multi-coordinarity, in many topics. Need some more detailed discussions about few things. Because while we work practically and we face these problems, then we need remedial solutions, and for that it's more important that find the cause and then go step by step to detect and then try to find the solution. Because the thing is, if we don't have solution, then the way is either we have to drop that we can't apply OLS, or we need to do some changes, but sometimes changes are not possible. So that's why many other things I want to discuss, but that I'll take next time if I have time. Okay, so the last part, is there any solution to this particular problem? But okay, there are, you know that these two variables are independent variables are intercorrelated, highly correlated. So what is the solution now? The first thing, the first thought is that do nothing, because this might be a common phenomena, and what you can do about it. The thing is that these remedial measures are not, they have so many limitations, and sometimes it create more problem than the solution. So that's the one thought, do nothing. But if you really want to do, then first thing is a prior information. Yes, if you know that why what thing is causing, like here the example is they have taken that, let's suppose they know that this x1 is related to this particular relation, they know a priori information, then in place of that they can use this particular equation and they can get rid of it. But generally we don't have this a priori information. Now thing is, the remedial solution, simply I'll explain you what remedial solution is about multicollinearity. Let's suppose we have these three variables. You have a data, right? And what multicollinearity is that this x1 and x2 are highly correlated, like let's suppose 0.90. Okay, this r square between this x1 and x2 is 0.90. So now just try to think how you can reduce this correlation. That's the remedial solution. Now the first way is by this method, combine cross-sectional time series data. Many times if you combine time series and cross-sectional data, like for example, I can just take example. Let's suppose this consumption and income example which we have taken. Over the time, income is increasing, consumption is also increasing. That might be the high cause of high correlation. So if you can add some cross-sectional data here in this particular income and consumption data, that might reduce the let's suppose this data is income, consumption, and this is time, uh, yearly data, like from 1950 to 1990. Over the time, both are increasing, so that might be a high correlation. But if you can add some cross-sectional observations here, like for 1950, let's suppose in India we have this 20. You can take data for all the 30, all the states of India. So for 1950, you have a data for all the states. Then 51, all the states. Then for 52, data for all the states. Means you added a cross-sectional data with the time series data. So what it will do, it will reduce this variation. Sorry, it will increase the variation. And once the variation will increase, and then it might be that this correlation will get reduced. So the purpose is we have to reduce this correlation. And one of the solution is add, but if it's possible, it's not that always we have these variables that where we can add time series and cross section. It depends upon the situation. That's why I'm telling this first thought is do nothing. Means it's not always we have a remedial, but if that's possible, like here in this consumption and income, then it can reduce this multicollinearity problem. Now, okay, another solution is okay, I'll come later on to dropping, but before that, transforming the variables. For this transformation might be ratio or first difference. For example, you have some time series data like this income and consumption. Now, in a form of deciding this cross section, in place of that, I think that this is a time series data, income and consumption. Let's put this is a population or any other variable. This is a time series data. 1952, 1990. But I am saying, okay, sorry, not I am saying, but this technique is saying that transformation, the one of the transform form is take first difference, means in place of this yearly data, just take difference like 1950 minus 1949, first difference. Check this first difference data, then 49 minus 48 and so on. Now, there is no reason that in the difference there is a high correlation. Earlier there is a correlation that 1950, 50, then 1949 value, 1949 value, but now take a difference values. So it's not necessary that in the difference values also there is a correlation. So you can do this transformation if it's applicable. It's not that always you can do it, but if it's possible. Another way of transforming is ratio. Let's suppose, yeah, just let's see if transformation is work here or not. Yeah. Uh, in this consumption and income, let's suppose we can take per capita income and per capita consumption, means ratio transformation. This particular is type of like per, earlier it is GDP on population. Sorry, this is variable is while consumption expenditure, X2 is GDP and X is total population. So if we divide it with the GDP, divided with the population, you will get per capita expenditure, per capita GDP. So it's not now necessary that we have a high correlation in the per capita form. Same I tried it in this consumption or income. If you can divide it with the population, you will get this per capita consumption and per capita income. And if you can run this regression, then you will get both the coefficients are significant. So this per capita means the transformation. Any ratio form can also reduce the correlations. Means, but the thing is, we are changing the original variables in the regression model just because we have a multi-coordinality problem. So again, I am telling you that like in the Medalla and many textbooks, they are described that sometimes the remedial solutions are much more problematic than the original position. So you have to think about that. Is it applicable? But technically, what are the given solutions that I'm discussing with you? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Another thing is that in the sample situation, but I told you that if your sample size is small, you take only small variation that might create a high correlation. If you can increase your sample size, means you can increase variation in your data. This is like increase this deviation, this third component. This component, the deviation in X. If you can increase it, if you can increase this, it might reduce this problem. And it also reduces correlation. So if you can increase the sample size, that can also increase the variation in the X variables, and that might reduce the correlation, high correlation situation. Yeah, Gagan, yes, log also you can take, means log can reduce it, the high coordinality problem. This log transformation is we can use for many different forms to get elasticities, to get rid of outliers, also in the multi-coordinality. Yeah, that's means this log transformation is quite useful in many forms. Actually, I want to take an extra class on these sixth chapter where we have this log, semi-log models. Let's see if we have a time. Otherwise, I can take in the end of part 4 or with the part 4. That's also important. Yeah, this log transformation can also help. Then, besides adding the data, sometimes you can think that why not you can drop that variable which is creating a problem. Because if two variables are highly correlated, then what's the point to keeping both the variables in the model? But that can create a specification problem. That topic I now I can take in part 4, although I want to take in part 3, but because since all of you are in part 4 as well, so I can take that topic specification model specification. So there we can do this model specification test, and there you will find that it might create a specification error if we can just drop the variable. And second, initially you might have put that variable because you think it's relevant to the theoretical framework and you have a literature support for that. So just dropping that because of this technical problem, then you have to defend that why you have dropped just because of multi-coordinality. Then you have to think again that is it the right solution? So these are the possible solutions. There are a few others. Now it's already 4:50, so time is always the limitation. Like this other methods of remedy for multi-coordinality, that is actually few methods like PCA method, this PCA regression, then ridge regression, these I'll try to take in next time in the series is few other things about the multicoordinarity and few other contradictory methods. Is what are the limitation of these detection methods, and is this notion of just working around the high R square is true to find the multicoordinarity? Is there any problems that I means there is a scope to take one more class on the multicoordinarity, but due to time limitation. But I think now you got this point that what is multicollinearity? Yeah, in Madala, this is ridge regression. Then PCA method is given there as a remedial solution. In Gujarati, they have given, but they had not explained actually. If you're reading this chapter here, I can show you. Yeah, in the end, they have this. Yeah, these other methods. Factor analysis, principal components, or techniques such as ridge regression. But the note is here, you can read. Unfortunately, these techniques are beyond the scope of this book. So for they cannot be discussed competently without resorting to matrix algebra. That's what I was telling you to for the eigenvalues as well. That for this principal component method, first we have to go through all this matrix algebra, then principal component method, then only you can understand these remedial measures for multicoordinarity. So in Madala, they had discussed these two methods in detail, ridge regression and principal component. And they have given in the matrix as well this matrix for this appendix for this matrix for eigenvalues and PCA method. So from there you can get this. If you can read that, you can get this solution as well to get rid of multicollinearity. In the regression, why do we do the square of age variable? Again, when we do, I don't know. I have no idea. Means I don't have this model here when we have been any square of the age variable. Means that might be something related to theory. I don't have. It's not something with the econometrics. Means if any of the paper you have read this square of age variable, then just try to read the methodology part, why they have done. It's not nothing related with the econometrics. This transformation is not for the econometrics. Okay, so this is multicollinearity. So the just in brief in 2 minutes, the problem is that the whole purpose of the regression is to find the impact of one variable on the another, and when we have a multiple regression, it's that partial slope coefficients which we want to estimate, we try to estimate, and the purpose is to find one impact on the another, keeping others constant. But if they are highly correlated, it's not possible to find their individual impacts, and in technical forms these create a problem of high variances, standard errors, and that's problematic for t ratios and for confidence interval. So that create a problem on a final call of hypothesis testing on a significance of the individual coefficients. So that's why this problem is uh, it's not that we can ignore this problem. It's a critical thing. So you have to think about it. But if you really want to get rid of it, in the first hand, you have to think, you have to get this idea that in regression, if two independent variables highly correlated, so while you construct your research questions, or although I won't suggest this that change your research question, made a research question, keeping in mind that you might face a multicollinearity. But if you are definitely you really want to apply this OLS method in regression, then definitely you have to keep in mind all these assumptions, that there are assumptions and that you have to take care while you're collecting the data or selecting your variables. Only the precaution is only the source here to get rid of this problem. Once you have this problem, then getting rid of it difficult. So try to not to get this problem at first hand. That's the thing. So you have to think about the model in that particular scenario in these assumptions. That's why many researchers don't find this OLS useful because then you need so much changes and you have to take care about all these things. So that choice is yours. Okay, so this is multicollinearity. I hope now you get this idea. What this multicollinearity is, how you can detect it, what are the possible causes, and how you can get rid of it. Although there are few detailed discussions are required, like PC and these methods, well, it's not Gujarati is itself rating that it's beyond the scope of this book. But let let me think about it. If we have a time after this series, we will do these few extra things. PCA definitely I want to do. That's quite useful, this factor analysis. Okay, so thank you so much. Tomorrow we will now discuss heteroscedasticity problem. That's another major problem in the OLS in the cross-sectional data sets. Thank you so much.